This is Nddc Today.
Hello. Nobody actually reinvents the wheel. Someone comes with some innovation, gets it to a certain level, the next person takes it up, gets it to another level, and before you know it, with all the various levels over many years, things happen. This is what happens in any development process. No set of people can do everything at the same time. So the Nddc is there to lay the foundation and to garner all the stakeholders to cooperate to build the kind of Niger Delta everybody is looking forward to. Every week, we shall take you through that building process, how the different executives who come and go put their talent, their resources, their managerial capabilities together to bring development to the Niger Delta. On Nddc Today, therefore, the Minister of the Niger Delta paid a working visit to the new management of the Nddc in Port Harcourt recently. What did they discuss? Find out. The Nddc new management promises to fast-track the completion of projects, inspects the permanent headquarters complex of the Commission at the Eastern Bypass in Port Harcourt. It's good news for Nddc contractors, as the Professor Nelson Brian Baefa-led management of the Commission begins the disbursement of a backlog of payments owed contractors. Nddc reaffirms its support for education in Niger Delta region, as the Acting Executive Director of Finance and Administration EDFA, Dr. Chris Amadi, and a Director in the Commission, Dr. Ibitoye Abosede, both bag PhDs, one in Trade and Development and Finance and the other in Communication Studies at the University of Port Harcourt. And the Acting Managing Director acknowledges divine favor and gratitude to God at a Thanksgiving service held in his honor recently at the Chapel of the Annunciation, Port Harcourt. This is Nddc Today. Stay with us. The Minister of the Niger Delta Affairs, Pastor Usani Uguru Usani, came calling during the week to see how the new management was settling down. He told them that they owed the Niger Delta their best. He said his ministry would continue to supervise the Commission and that the performance of the Commission would determine the kind of agitation that would come from various parts of the Niger Delta. A reporter was there.
The Minister of Niger Delta Affairs, Pastor Usani Uguru Usani, has charged the new management of the Niger Delta Development Commission (Nddc) to do more for the development of the Niger Delta region. The minister was speaking at the Nddc headquarters in Port Harcourt recently when he paid a working visit to the new management team of the Commission. He was accompanied by his Minister of State, Professor Claudius Daramola, the Ministry's Permanent Secretary, Alhaji Aminu Aliu Bisala, and other directors of the supervising ministry. Pastor Usani stated that the current Nddc management, being an interim one, was expected to do more for the people of the Niger Delta than a regular board.
We are all aware that the current management is seen as interim. This being the case, our expectations from the performance of this management is higher than what it would have been under normal circumstances. Therefore, we expect every functionary as staff of the Commission to appreciate these facts and thus put up the very maximum of efforts in the performance of any any duty or responsibility assigned to you.
He urged the NDDC management and staff to recognize the important and special place they occupy in the development of Niger Delta and in the bigger economic picture of Nigeria.
We are charging you to put on your best. There's a lot that can be achieved within the months before the first tenure of this administration. Thank God the administration continues, and so much more can be done. Of course, the policy of this administration is that nothing like abandoned projects. And that's the reason you can see many of the projects started 20, 30 years ago, especially the infrastructure, are still being reviewed and executed. So it's very important for staff of NDDC, especially the management, to know the special place you occupy in the development of Niger Delta and in the economic picture or image of Nigeria as a whole.
Earlier, in his remarks, the NDDC Acting Managing Director, Professor Nelson Brambaifa, said that in the absence of the Commission's Board of Directors, the Minister takes over as the supervising authority.
Honourable Minister, you are welcome. We are all assembled here to get briefings from you. I want us to perform our duties, whether we've been here for 2 months, whether we've fared well. If we have not fared well, forgive us. Just direct us so that we do what you want us to do.
In his own remarks, the NDDC Acting Executive Director Finance and Administration, Mr. Chris Amadi, said the Commission was very much aware of the need to fast-track the development of the Niger Delta region and was appropriately taking directives from its supervising ministry. Mr. Amadi reaffirmed that NDDC had commenced project inspection, starting with the new headquarters of the Commission, and would be embarking on major project inspection across the region from next week.
The MDC have directed, and we have just also paid all our water hyacinth contractors. We've also paid our major contractors to ensure that they all go back to site and complete project. We have commitments from several of them that projects will be completed in a few weeks. The MD has commenced project visits. He's just visited the new head office complex, and from next week he will go around various states to see the other mega projects.
Sometimes the presidential orders are predictable. Go to the Niger Delta and complete ongoing projects instead of rushing into new ones while the old ones are still uncompleted. Well, like good servants, the new board or the new management has heeded the presidential call and has decided to fast-track some projects. And where best to start than from home? The permanent site of the NDDC, a building which has been in the making for some years now, in the Eastern Bypass in Port Harcourt. The acting managing director, Professor Brambaifa, and the executive director of projects decided to pay the site a visit to fast-track this 12-story edifice, which is supposed to be one of its best of its kind.
The Niger Delta Development Commission (NDDC) has renewed its drive to fast-track the completion of its projects spread across the 9 Niger Delta states, especially those it has identified that will transform the region significantly. The NDDC's acting managing director, Professor Nelson Brambaifa, set the tone for the Commission's plans to drive development efforts while inspecting the new permanent headquarters complex of the Commission at the Eastern Bypass in Port Harcourt last week. Accompanied at the inspection tour by the Acting Executive Director Projects of the NDDC, Engineer Samuel Ajogbe, Professor Brambaifa described the new headquarters complex as a marvelous edifice and emphasized on the priority of the NDDC management to provide a conducive working environment for its staff.
From what I have seen, we've seen that my predecessors have done very well, but we'll improve on what they have done. You've heard what they said, completion rate, with all things being equal, is estimated at the fourth quarter. So by the fourth quarter, we might be able to get all the 9 governors to come in and commission this edifice building. It's a plus for the state.
Professor Bram Baifa charged other NDDC contractors handling other ongoing projects to take a cue from the work going on at the new headquarters, urging them to take their work seriously.
They should take their job seriously. We pay milestone. The earlier they complete their milestone, we pay them. There's money available to pay them. So there's no point sitting at home and expecting to be paid.
The NDDC boss said that the Commission was anxious to complete the headquarters project to add value to the work of the Commission towards actualizing its mandate, saying that this was in line with the resolve of the new management of the Commission to promptly complete all ongoing projects. Speaking also during the project inspection, the NDDC Executive Director of Projects, Engineer Samuel Ajogbe, commended the contractors for a job well done and assured that the NDDC would provide all the financial support necessary to ensure that the project was completed expeditiously, stating that the Commission would not compromise on quality and adherence to the approved designs of the project.
We will find out time and we support the MD for us to be able to visit other locations, so that we have face-to-face encounter with the project and see what the issues are. Like in this particular case, we have been able to identify that critically we need to address the issue of paying people that supply some of the items, long lead items, so they can release them for us to install. It is only when they are installed that they can add to our own progress.
On his part, the project manager, architect Ebiwene Bozimo, assured the NDDC that the target set for the completion of the office complex would be met if funds were released at the appropriate timelines. He said that work at the main office complex was now at a finishing level, while work was progressing satisfactorily on the ancillary structures comprising facilities such as a medical center, a restaurant, a bank, car parks, among others.
This is a 12-story main tower of the future headquarters of NDDC. It stands in the same site as additional support structures like an ancillary building, security structures, service structures. All of these are supposed to be properly delivered within an environment that has external works, landscaping, parking, security, lighting, and everything in such a way that the activities of NDDC will be carried out in the most modern environment we can envision, considering when the project started. We're actively making sure that even though the project started long ago, it will end now and it will end at the best contemporary level. So we're making sure that we're substituting something to modern things, but trying to keep the cost within a proper framework.
Everyone is hoping that this building will finally be completed in the watch of the current management. Yes, completing ongoing projects and paying contractors on time will help to stem use restiveness in the area, no doubt.
It's good news for NDDC contractors as the Professor Nelson Brambaifa-led management of the Commission begins the disbursement of a backlog of payments owed contractors. This is in line with the promise it made upon assumption of office in January this year. Nddc Today caught up with Dr. Chris Amadi, the Acting Executive Director of Finance and Administration, at a press briefing recently in Port Harcourt.
Upon our assumption of office, the Professor Nelson Brambaifa-led team thought it very necessary to address the issue of backlog of payments, because most of these projects have been completed. Some are at various stages of completion. Yet the contractors who have verifiable certificates were not paid. And we thought that it was necessary to spread payments across the levels rather than concentrate on specific contractors, and ensure that as we pay them, they go back to site to complete. For those who probably have completed, we make sure we get them paid. To get a contractor paid, there are things that you require. We need to have properly certified and verified certificates. We went through the entire hub of verification and we revalidated the old certificates we found to ensure that these certificates are good enough for payment. But we also realized that we had a chunk of very small payments which were still outstanding. And this is where you find the youths who had done little jobs, little supplies, little contracts here and there, yet they were not paid. We thought it was necessary to also clear those backlogs, which was why we introduced that policy of graduating our outstanding payments from 10 million and below, 20 million and below, 30 million and below, until we were able to clear up what is outstanding. We made that promise when we came on board. We have not only made a promise, we have implemented them. You are a journalist, you can verify that. You can go around the streets. We're getting feedbacks here and there. People stay in the comfort of their homes and receive their alerts. That is also not to say that we're not addressing the payments of the huge contractors who are handling other projects. So in all, we are committed to addressing peace in the region and pursuing infrastructural development. That's the policy thrust of the Brown Baifa-led team.
We'll be back with you on NDDC Today. Don't go far.
Decades ago, the kingdom of Nembe, among other communities, buried in the bellies of the Bayelsa mangroves, were cut off from economic and social civilization for lack of motorable roads. In 2006, the NDDC, in partnership with Shell, came with a promise of hope. A 27-kilometer high-tech highway with 5 bridges cutting through rivers, swamps and mangrove forests of the Ogbea Upume Makalakala up to the city of Nembe town. It's now in use. The joy of the Nembes and its environs now knows no bound. Nembe economy and the industriousness of its people have taken a sudden leap.
With the help of this road which NDDC and Shell have brought to Nembe, it makes everything easy.
Now that it's road, we are feeling happy.
We are relaxed. We can travel at will. And then the joy of being integrated to the mainland can never be quantified.
The NDDC, really determined to make a difference.
It looks like for the first time, the NDDC is going to have a doctor as the Executive Director, Finance and Administration. This happened recently at the 32nd convocation ceremony of the University of Port Harcourt, where now Dr. Chris Amadi bagged the doctorate in Trade and Development Finance. Also, a director in the NDDC, Mr. Ibitoye Abosede, now Dr. Ibitoye Abosede, also got his PhD at the same ceremony, this time in Communication Studies. At that event, the Executive Director of Finance, Dr. Chris Amadi, outlines how the NDDC has collaborated and helped universities across the Niger Delta.
The Niger Delta Development Commission (NDDC) has restated its commitment to support quality education by executing more development projects in the universities and polytechnics in the Niger Delta region. The NDDC Acting Executive Director of Finance and Administration, EDFA, Dr. Chris Amadi, reaffirmed the Commission's resolve during the 32nd convocation ceremony for the 2016 and 2017 and 2018-2019 academic session of the University of Port Harcourt, Uniport. At the graduation ceremony, Dr. Amadi received the Doctor of Philosophy degree, PhD, in Trade and Development Finance. Alongside another NDDC director, Dr. Ibitoye Abosede,
who bagged the Doctor of Philosophy degree, PhD, in Communication Studies. Dr. Amadi said that the NDDC had sustained a healthy partnership with the universities across the Niger Delta, including the University of Port Harcourt, which had benefited in so many ways. He recalled that last year, the NDDC endowed a professorial chair in malaria research for the Center for Malaria Research and Phytomedicine, CMRAP, at the University of Port Harcourt, for the sum of 25 million naira per annum.
Uniport in particular has benefited in the areas of infrastructural development. We have built a couple of hostels here. We are also currently, this happened under the leadership of Professor Nelson Brambaifa, our current team. We are doing rehabilitating the internal roads within the university to make learning easy for people who school here.
He noted that this new academic laurel would add value to his work in the NDDC in managing the finances of the interventionist agency.
But my role as executive director, acting executive director, in charge of finance and administration, the PhD in development finance means that I have acquired more expertise, more skills, more knowledge on how to attract the needed financing for the development of the region.
We're here to celebrate someone who has worked very hard, someone I can describe without equivocation as an astute administrator and sagacious intellectual. Somebody who is very calm, very deep, very focused, very friendly, and somebody who I am very confident that he will go places.
He's a brother with whom I am well pleased. He has done well. He has proved himself to be worthy in character and in learning, and that's why he's been admitted to a Doctor of Philosophy. And we actually look forward to seeing more things from him. We look forward to celebrating him more, because we believe that celebration should be a lifelong thing.
In his address at the convocation, President Muhammadu Buhari called on the private sector to invest in research and development in the nation's universities. The president, who was represented by the Minister of State for Education, Professor Anthony Onwuka, said that tertiary education in the country had undergone progressive transformation in the last 4 years. Also speaking at the event, the Vice Chancellor of the university, Professor Ndo Alale, said that the university had witnessed immense infrastructural and academic development since he assumed office in 2015. The professor said that new programs have been introduced in Uniport with a focus of making the university a world-class institution in academics, research and development.
Nddc, here to make a difference.
The NDDC, is it touching lives and making the necessary impact?
What we can see now, today, we have a road.
In this hostel, we also have the supermarkets where students can come and get their stuffs, the bread, the provisions, soaps, snacks and all that. So in this hostel, students are really happy here.
Yes, and everybody is happy. Since we don't get this water, make it no stop or make it continue like this, so we go happy.
Nddc, here to make a difference.
NDDC, determined to make a difference.
All of us have many things to be grateful for, while some expressing their appreciation for the Ogbanembe Road, which has been an NDDC project. I hope it will be commissioned very soon. The acting managing director, Professor Brambaifa, is also saying thank you to God for his appointment won and for being given a chance to do what he's always wanted to do, that's take an active part in the development of the Niger Delta. The service of Thanksgiving was held at the Church of Annunciation in Port Harcourt. Our correspondent was there. The acting managing director of the NDDC, Professor Nelson Brambaifa, has appealed to the youths of the Niger Delta to always give peace a chance in the region to ensure the continuous development of the region by the interventionist agency. Professor Brambaifa gave this admonition recently during a Thanksgiving service held in his honor at the Chapel of Annunciation, Catholic Chaplaincy, Port Harcourt.
A lot of work to be done to fulfill our mandate. They should give us the time and the patience. We will do what is expected of us. Let's be calm. Peace will reign. But there can't be any development without peace.
In attendance at the Thanksgiving service were family members, the Executive Director of Finance and Administration, NDDC, Dr. Chris Amadi, friends and other well-wishers of the Acting Managing Director of the NDDC. An excited but humble Professor Brambaifa thanked the Almighty God for the opportunity given him to rise to the position of Acting MD of the NDDC, in spite of the fact that he was among the least qualified for the job, and assured that he would do his best to ensure that the agency lived up to its mandate.
I was the least qualified, so what I did cleverly was have a covenant with God through his priest this year. I said, God, if you give me this job, I'll build your house.
Well, the acting managing director of the NDDC at a Thanksgiving service where he's thanking the government for giving him the opportunity to help actively to develop the Niger Delta. We'll be here to follow to see that Thanksgiving is yielding results every week on Nddc Today. And not only him, the whole team that is now making sure that the mandate given to the NDDC is being truly actualized. Every week we'll be here to follow them up. Don't forget, if you have anything to suggest or any comments you want to make, our telephones are always on the screen. And as we always say, we'll be glad to forward your suggestions. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you same time next week. Bye.